Praise Yahweh. The enemy will do anything to separate you from Yahweh. Just keep coming back to Yahweh. No matter what you do, come home. Expect forgiveness and unlimited grace. Don't abuse it, but his only goal is separating you from Yahweh. That's all that he can actually do, is permanently take you away to where you feel insufficient and inadequate to beg for forgiveness through the blood of the Messiah and be grateful, thankful that you have it. In Yeshua name. Oh, Father Yahweh, bless this reading as I begin to speak your word. And thank you for your son, Yashua HaMashiach. Yeshua, thank you for all that you did. All the grace, all the forgiveness. Father, teach us how to dominate our flesh so that we may walk in the Spirit and be the love that you expect us to be, respectful and responsible of others. Father Yahweh, there is none greater than you. There is none before, and there are none to come. We love you. Give me the words. Let the people hear. In Yeshua's name, amen. No matter what tricks I fall for of the devils throughout the day, no matter how many things I do to pray, that I would be like, yeah, I probably shouldn't have done that and I pissed Yah off. And this is the box checker Christian versus the Revelation 744,000. They give up their entire lives to say, we know we're going to mess up, and we're just going to mess up as close to you as possible. Nothing pisses the enemy off more than when I fall for his tricks and then open my word an hour later, 20 minutes later, 5 minutes later, the next day. Job 41. Would you draw out Leviathan with the hook, or snare his tongue with a line which you lower? Would you put a cord through his nose, or pierce his jaw with a hook? Would he keep on pleading with you? Would he speak softly to you? Would he make a covenant with you to be taken as a servant forever? Would you play with him as with a bird, or leash him for your young girls? Would trading partners be bargain over him? Would they divide him among the merchants? Fill his skin with harpoons, or his head with fishing spears? Put your hand on him. Think of the struggle. Do not do it again. See, any expectation of him is disappointed. He is laid low even at the sight of him. No one is so foolhardy to wake him up. Who then is able to stand against me? Who has given to me first, that I should repay him? Under all the heavens that is mine. I would not keep silent concerning his limbs, or his mighty power, or his fair frame. Who shall take off the surface of his skin, who reproaches him with a double bridle? Who shall open the doors of his face with his frightening teeth all around? Rows of scales are his pride, closed up a binding seal. One to the other they fit closely. Not even a breath enters between them. They are joined one to another. They stick together and are not separated. His sneezings flash forth light, and his eyes are like eyelids of the morning. Out of his mouth go firebrands. Sparks of fire shoot out. Out of his nostril comes smoke like a boiling pot or kettle. His breath sets coals on fire, and a flame goes out of his mouth. Strength dwells in his neck, and fear leaps before him. The folds of his flesh cleave together. They are firm on him, immovable. His heart is as hard as stone, even as hard as the lower millstone. When he raises himself up, the mighty are afraid. Because of his crashings, they are bewildered. No sword that reaches him does prevail, neither spear, dart, or lance. He reckons iron as straw, bronze as rotten wood. The arrow does not make him flee. Sling stones become like stubble to him. Clubs are reckoned as straw. He laughs at the rattle of a lance. His undersides are like sharp potsherds. He sprawls on the mud like a threshing sledge. He makes the deep boil like a pot. He makes the sea like a pot of ointment. He leaves a shining path behind him. One would think the deep to be gray-haired. No one on earth is like him, one made without fear. He sees all that is haughty. He is sovereign over all the sons of pride. All right, so in our discussion of Job 40, I had mentioned that the New American Bible, my big fancy Catholic Bible, has Leviathan at the end of verse 40. It has Leviathan in 40:25. Yeah, see, this is just weird. So, this is the only translation that has that like that. And so I've read Job, and that was the book that I started reading Job, and that's probably why I stopped, because that translation is so strange. Because all of 41, if you look at, and I don't usually love the chapter divisions here, but I think it works really well in Job because of the conversational aspect of it. If you look at the way that this starts, if you take that first verse, would you draw out Leviathan with a hook or snare his tongue with a line which you lower, and put it in chapter 40, then you have no context for what chapter 41 is talking about. So all four of my other Bible translations I'm currently using have this context of verse 41 starts talking about Leviathan, verse 41 talks all about Leviathan. Now, we talked about Behemoth. Behemoth has a lot of earthly qualities up until, see, if a river rages, he is not alarmed. He feels safe, even if the Yarden gushes into his mouth. Before his eyes shall he be caught with snares, or his nose pierced. If the Yarden gushes into his mouth, we could probably give that away as an exaggeration. Something similar to when she lifts herself on high, she laughs at the horse and its rider. Talking about an ostrich in verse 39:18. And she treats her young harshly. Would the wild ox be pleased to serve you? The wild donkey, he laughs at the commotion of the city, and he does not hear the shouts of the driver. You know what I mean? So, like, let's make a point here that Behemoth very well could be an earth-dwelling creature. The Leviathan, we start getting the real picture of the Leviathan. And as I talked about previously, this is not seeming like an earthly beast. The American Bible says here a crocodile, and so does the New World Translations, possibly the crocodile. My point from Job 26 about Rahab combined with Leviathan is that these are guardians of, just like how Elohim has cherubim that guard the Garden of Eden, or, you know, his angels. His angels who guard the heavens. So too he has set forth guardians of the deep, guardians of Sheol, basically Satan's minions and his army. And so if we go to Revelation, which we've spent how much time in, and we're going to go into Revelation 12:9. And the great dragon was thrown out, that serpent of old, called the devil and Satan, who leads all the world astray. He was thrown to the earth, and his messengers were thrown out with him. Oh, so he has messengers. Cool. We're going to go to another verse. This is Revelation 20. And I saw a messenger coming down from the heaven, having the key to the pit of the deep, and a great chain in his hand. Okay. And he seized the dragon, the serpent of old, who is the devil and Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years. And he threw him into the pit of the deep, and shut him up, and set a seal on him, so that he should lead the nations no more astray until the 1,000 years were ended. And after that, he has to be released for a little while. And I saw the thrones, and they sat on them, and judgment was given to them. And okay, so in Revelation, before I go into 20 verse 4, Revelation 19 shows Yeshua coming out in verse 11, and I saw the heavens open up, and there was a white horse, and he who sat on it was called Trustworthy and True, and in righteousness he judges and fights. And his eyes were as a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns, having a name that was written, which no one had perceived except himself. And having been dressed in a robe dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of Yahweh. Who is the Word of Yahweh? The Word made flesh. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. (1:14) And the Word became flesh, and pitched his tent among us, and we saw his esteem as an only brought forth of a father, complete in favor and Oh, truth. Trustworthy and true. All right. This is Yashua HaMashiach. And the armies in the heaven, dressed in fine linen, white and clean, followed him on white horses. And out of his mouth goes a sharp sword, that with it he should smite the nations, and he shall shepherd them with a rod of iron. And he treads the winepress of the fierceness and wrath of El Shaddai. And his robe, and on his thigh, he has a name written, Sovereign of Sovereigns and Master of Masters. And I saw one messenger standing in the sun, and he cried with a loud voice, saying to all the birds that fly in mid-heaven, Come and gather together for the supper of the great Elohim, to eat the flesh of sovereigns, and the flesh of commanders, and the flesh of strong ones, and the flesh of horses, and of those who sit on them, and the flesh of all people, free and slave, both small and great. And I saw the beast and the sovereigns of the earth and their armies gathered together to fight him who sat on the horse and his army. And the beast was seized, and with him the false prophet, who worked signs in his presence, by which he led astray those who received the mark of the beast and those who worshipped his image. The two were thrown alive into the lake of fire, burning with sulfur. And the rest were killed with the sword, which came from the mouth of him who sat on the horse, and all the birds were filled with their flesh. I am looking for a very specific verse that I might have to Bible app on account of my Revelation timeline is a little mixed up. But here it is. And I saw on the sand of the sea, Revelation 13:1. And I stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast coming up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his horn 10 crowns, and on his heads names of blasphemy. So, and the beast I saw was like a leopard, and his feet were like the feet of a bear, and his mouth like the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his throne and great authority. And I saw one of his heads as having been slain to death, and his deadly wounds was healed. And all the earth marveled after the beast, and they worshipped the dragon who gave authority to the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like the beast? Who is able to fight with him? And he was given a mouth speaking great matters and blasphemies, and he was given authority to do so 42 months. And he opened his mouth and blasphemes against Elohim, to blaspheme his name and his tent and those dwelling in the heaven. And it was given to him to fight with the set-apart ones and to overcome them. And authority was given to him over every tribe and tongue and nation. And all those dwelling on the earth whose names have not been written in the book of life of the slain Lamb from the foundation of the world shall worship him. If anyone has an ear, let him hear. He who brings into captivity shall go into captivity, and he who kills with the sword has to be killed with the sword. Here is the endurance of and the belief of the set-apart ones. And I saw another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb and spoke like a dragon. And he exercises all the authority of the first beast in his presence, and causes the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And he does great signs, so that he even makes fire come down from the heaven on the earth before men. And he leads astray to those dwelling on the earth because of those signs which he was given to do before the beast, saying to those dwelling on the earth to make an image to the beast who was wounded by the sword yet lived. And there was given to him to give spirit to the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause to be killed as many as would not worship the image of the beast. And he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, and free and slave, to be given a mark on their right hand or upon their foreheads. That's what I was looking for before, with the seal of his hand. And that no one should be able to buy or sell except that he has the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here is the wisdom. He who has understanding, let him calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. Some ancient manuscriptures have 616 instead of 666. Who knows? Where am I going with this? Back to Revelation 20, because I have a point. And I saw thrones, verse 4, and they sat on them, and judgment was given to them, and the lives of those who had been beheaded because of the witness they bore to Yeshua, and because of the word of Elohim, and who did not worship the beast nor his image, and did not receive his mark upon their foreheads or upon their hands. And they lived and reigned with Messiah for 1,000 years. And the rest of the dead did not come to life until the 1,000 years were ended. This is the first resurrection. Blessed and set apart is the one having part in the first resurrection. The second death possesses no authority over these, and they shall be priests of Elohim and of the Messiah, and shall reign with him 1,000 years. And when the 1,000 years have ended, Satan shall be released from his prison, and he shall go out to lead the nations astray, which are in the 4 corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together for battle, whose number is as the sand of the sea. And they came up over the breadth of the earth, and surrounded the camp of the set-apart ones in the beloved city. And fire came down from Elohim out of the heaven, and consumed them. And the devil who led them astray was thrown into the lake of fire and sulfur, where the beast and the false prophet are. And they shall be tortured day and night forever and ever. And I saw a great white throne, and him who was sitting on it, from whose face the earth and the heaven fled away, and no place was found for them. And I saw the dead, small and great, standing before the throne, and books were opened, and another book was opened, which is the book of life, and the dead were judged from what was written in the book, according to their works. And the sea gave up the dead who were in it, and death and Sheol gave up the dead who were in them. And they were judged, each one according to his works. And death and Sheol were thrown into the lake of fire. This is the second death. And if anyone was not found written in the book of life, he was thrown into the lake of fire. Okay. Now, you might ask, why are we reading this instead of reading Job? Well, let's get into that. Would you draw Leviathan with a hook or snare his tongues with a line which you lower? Leviathan. So far as we know, a sea monster. We have a couple other contexts. Job 3:8, let those curse it who curse the day, who are ready to stir up Leviathan. Would you draw out Leviathan with a hook or snare his tongue with a line which you lower? Psalm 74:14. You broke the heads of Leviathan in pieces. You made him food for the people living in the wilderness. Would you draw out Leviathan with a hook or snare his tongue with a line which you lower? We should also mention that this is still Elohim talking to Job. Yahuwah and Job had a little back and forth in 40. And Yahuwah said, should a reprover contend with the Almighty, let him who reproves Eloah answer it. And Job answered Yahuwah and said, see, I am insignificant. What would I answer you? I lay my hand over my mouth. Once I have spoken, but I have no answer, and twice, but I say no more. Then Yahuwah answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, so the rest of it is Yahuwah talking, but he calls Job out. He says, you got something to say? And Job says, I say no more. In Psalm 74:14, we know that Yahuwah breaks Leviathan into pieces, the heads of Leviathan. Heads of Leviathan? I saw a beast coming up out of the sea, and I saw one of his heads. Isaiah 27:1, in that day, Yahuwah with his severe sword, great and strong, punishes Leviathan, the fleeing serpent, Leviathan, that twisted serpent, and he shall kill the monster that is in the sea. In that day I sing to her, a vineyard of red wine. I, Yahuwah, do guard it. I water it every moment, lest any hurt it. I guard it night and day. Wrath is not in me. Who would set thorn bushes and weeds against me in battle? I would go through them. I would burn them together. I, Yahuwah, do guard it. where are we going with this? Let's find out. 41:2. Would you put a cord through his nose or pierce his jaw with a hook? You go fishing for Leviathan. Would he keep on pleading with you? Would he speak softly to you? Yeah, I was talking to Job here, asking him, basically, would you stir up Leviathan? Would you take on Leviathan? And you're going to take me on? If you did, would he keep on pleading with you? Would he speak softly to you? Would he make a covenant with you to be taken as a servant forever? Would you play with him as with a bird, or leash him for your young girls? Should you let a little girl play with this? Would trading partners bargain over him? Like they could just sell him, trade him? Like this is going to be just easy. Would they divide him among the merchants? Fill his skin with harpoons, or his head with fishing spears? What are you going to do to kill this thing? Put your hand on him. Think of the struggle. Do not do it again. I want to see what other... Verse 8. Lay thine hand upon him. Remember the battle. Do no more. Once you lay but a hand upon him, no need to recall any other conflict. Lay your hand on it, you will remember the battle and never do it again. Lay your hand on him, remember the battle, you will not do it again. Okay, so, yeah. Put your hand on him, think of the struggle, do not do it again. I like the way the New World Translation says it because it's you know, like that's really the question here is, would you fight him? And then if you touch him, it'd be like touching a hot stove. Lay your hand on it. You will remember the battle and never do it again. Okay? Touch him, see what happens. See, any expectation of him is disappointed. He is laid low even at the sight of him. Behold, the hope of him is vain, shall not one be cast down even out of the sight of him. Any hope of subduing it is futile. The mere sight of it would overwhelm you. Behold, the hope of man is false. He is laid low even at the sight of him. Any expectation of him is disappointed. He is laid low even at the sight of him. So, you're going to duck. Like, if you, like, be walking into battle and we'll go into David and Goliath in a second, but like David walks up to Goliath and he's like, "What's up?" 1 Samuel 17:39. And David girded his sword over his garments and began to go, but he had not tried them. Then David said to Shaul, I am not able to go with these, for I have not tried them. So David took them off. And he took his staff in his hand, and chose for himself 5 smooth stones from the wadi, and put them in a shepherd's bag in a pouch which he had, and his sling was in his hand, and he drew near to the Philistine. And the Philistine came and began drawing near to David, and the man who bore the shield went before him. And when the Philistine looked about and saw David, he despised him, for he was a youth and ruddy and of handsome appearance. And the Philistine said to David, Am I a dog that you come to me with sticks? And the Philistine cursed David by his mighty ones. And the Philistine said to David, Come to me, and I give your flesh to the birds of the heavens and the beasts of the field. But David said to the Philistine, You come to me with a sword and with a spear and with a javelin, but I came to you in the name of Yahuwah of hosts, the Elohim of the armies of Yisrael, whom you have reproached. This day Yahuwah shall deliver you into my hand, and I shall strike you and take your head from you, and give the carcass of the camp of the Philistines today to the birds of the heavens and the wild beasts of the earth, so that all the earth know that the Elohim is for Yisrael. And all this assembly know that Yahuwah does not save with sword and spear, for the battle belongs to Yahuwah, and he shall give you into our hands. And it came to be, when the Philistine arose and came and drew near to meet David, that David hurried and ran toward the army to meet the Philistine. And David put his hand in his bag and took a stone and slung it, and struck the Philistine on his forehead, so that the stone sank into his forehead, and he fell on his face to the ground. Thus David was stronger than the Philistine with a sling and a stone, and struck the Philistine and killed him. And there was no sword in the hand of David. Then David ran and stood over the Philistine, and took his sword and drew it out of its sheath and killed him, and cut off his head with it. And when the Philistines saw that their champion was dead, they fled. Okay. David walks into the army of the Philistine. Obviously, this is Goliath, which we don't have by name right now, but it is in here somewhere. But he goes up to the army of the Philistine and says, I come to you. You come to me with a sword and with a spear and with a javelin, but I come to you in the name of Yahuwah of hosts, the Elohim of the armies of Yisrael, whom you have reproached. Okay. Yahuwah breaks the heads of Leviathan. So, any expectation you have of him is disappointed. He is laid low even at the sight of him. So David runs up to Goliath, this giant, and says, let's party, dude, because you got all this gear and I got Yahuwah. And Yahuwah here says, if you think that you're going to battle even Leviathan by yourself, that if a man thinks he will battle Leviathan by himself, that man is laid low at the sight of him. Verse 10, no one is so foolhardily hardy to wake him up. Who then is able to stand against me? Nobody would take on Leviathan. Who can stand against me, Yahuwah Elohim, creator of the universe? Who has given to me first that I should repay him under all the heavens that is mine? Who? I would not keep silent concerning his limbs or his mighty power or his fair frame. Who shall take off the surface of his skin? Who approaches him with a double bridle? Who shall open the doors of his face with his frightening teeth all around? Rows of scales are his pride, closed up a binding seal. Now, who has given to me first that I shall repay? So we're going to go to Matthew 11:27. All have been handed over to me by my Father, and no one knows the Son except the Father, nor does anyone know the Father except the Son, and he to whom the Son wishes to reveal him. Come to me, all you who labor and are burdened, and I shall give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, and learn from me, for I am meek and humble in heart, and you shall find rest for your beings, for my yoke is gentle and my burden is light. Who has given to me first that I should repay him? Under all the heaven that is mine. I would not keep silent concerning his limbs, or his mighty power, or his fair frame. Who shall take off the surface of his skin, who approaches him with a double bridle? So, 11 and 12 go together, and then we get back to talking about Leviathan. 11 and 12 is talking about a man. 13 goes back to Leviathan. 14, who shall open the doors of his face, basically his jaws with his frightening teeth all around. Rows of scales are his pride, closed up a binding seal. His pride. What do we have here? His scales are his pride, shut up together with a closed seal. Rows of scales are on his back, tightly sealed together. Its back has rows of scales tightly sealed together. His back is made up of rows of shields shut up closely as with a seal. Yeah. Scales of body armor. Essentially, the impenetrableness, one to the other they fit closely, not even a breath enters between them. Hyperbole. They are joined one to another. They stick together and are not separated. His sneezings flash forth light, and his eyes are like the eyelids of the morning. His neathing a light doth shine, and his eyelids are like the eyes of the eyelids of the morning. When he sneezes, light flashes forth. His eyes are like those of the dawn. Its snorting flashes out light, and its eyes are like the eyes of the dawn. His sneezing flashes forth lights, and his eyes are like the eyelids of the dawn. Okay. Out of his mouth goes firebrands. Sparks of fire shoot out. Why do we read all that revelation about beasts and dragons and the sea? Out of his nostril comes smoke, like a boiling pot or kettle. What crocodile do you know that has smoke coming out of its nostrils, firebrands out of its mouth, firebrands which are essentially burning lamps, and sparks of fire leap out? Firebrands are like flaming torches, says the ESV. flashes of lightning, says the New World Translation. A firebrand, to me, is like a burning hot ember. Something that's like, I'm thinking like a glowing red pitchfork. Like, tongue sticking out with like this. Yeah, like it just burns you on contact because of the fire. Out of his nostril comes smoke like the boiling pot or kettle. His breath sets coals on fire, and a flame goes out of his mouth. A flame goes out of his mouth. What crocodile? However, a dragon. Okay. All right. Dragons. And guardians of the deep. Folds of his flesh cleave together. They are firm on him, immovable. His heart is as hard as stone, even as hard as the lower millstone. That is a reference to grinding grains. Ezekiel 36:26, and I shall give you a new heart and put a new spirit within you. And I shall take the heart of stone out of your flesh, and I shall give you a heart of flesh, and put my spirit within you. And I shall cause you to walk in my laws and guard my right rulings, and shall do them. And you shall dwell in the land that I gave to your fathers, and you shall be my people, and I shall be your Elohim. Even as hard as the lower millstone. When he raises himself up, the mighty are afraid. Because of the crashings, they are bewildered. The waves of the seas fall back. Thrashing causes bewilderment. Yeah, so still he's painting the picture here of the untamability of Leviathan. And Yahuwah just breaks his heads. No sword that reaches him does prevail, neither spear, dart, or lance. So, Leviathan's a dragon. What is slain with the sword? The beast. Not the dragon. It says, having a great chain in his hand, Revelation 20, he seized the dragon, the serpent of old, who is the devil and Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years. And he threw him into the pit of the deep, and shut him up and set a seal on him, so that he should lead the nations no more astray until the 1,000 years were ended. So, the dragon adds this beast minion to do his dirty work. He reckons iron as straw, bronze as rotten wood. The arrow does not make him flee. Sling stones become like stubble to him. David couldn't take this unit on. Clubs are reckoned as straw. He laughs at the rattle of a lance. His undersides are like sharp potsherds. He sprawls out on the mud like a threshing sledge. Sharp stones are under him. He spreadeth sharp-pointed things upon the mire. Yeah. His belly is sharp as pottery fragments. He spreads like a threshing sledge upon the mire. Underneath it is like sharp fragments of pottery. It spreads itself in the mud like a threshing sledge. His underparts are like sharp potsherds. He spreads himself like a threshing sledge on the mire. So, yeah, he can. He's got this really sharp underside. Interesting that his back is like shields. Rows of scales are his pride, closed up a binding seal. He makes the sea like a pot of ointment. He leaves a shining path behind him. He makes the deep boil like a pot. All that fire and flame coming out of him, you'd think, right? He makes the deep boil like a pot. He makes the sea like a pot of ointment. He turns like perfume in a kettle. Stirs up the sea like an ointment pot. He makes the sea like a pot of ointment. He leaves a shining path behind him. One would think the deep to be gray-haired. He maketh a path to shine after him. One would think the deep to be hoary. Behind him it leaves a shining path. You would think the deep had the hoary head of age. It leaves a glistening wake in its path. One would think that the deep had white hair. Behind him he leaves a shining wake. One would think that the deep to be white-haired. I have no notes anywhere on this line. So, he's obviously able to torment the sea. He's got this hot ointment. Picturing like a pedal and mortar. I think that's what they're called. Where basically you like churn the herbs and then you can boil them, or whatever, make a paste in the mortar and pedal. He leaves a shining path behind him. One would think the deep to be gray-haired. He leaves a shining path behind him. This, to me, is deception. A shining path behind this dragon of evil. I would think the deep to be gray-haired. Lack of respect. No one on earth is like him, one made without fear. This Leviathan doesn't have fear. Why doesn't Leviathan have fear? Not even fear of Elohim. No one on earth is like him, one made without fear. Yeah, this is, imagine if we caught a dragon and we made without fear. One made without fear. Just like the Philistines. Just like the Philistine. David comes up and Goliath despises him. He who is wroth with his brother without cause has committed murder. Matthew 5:22, but I say to you that whoever is wroth with his brother without a cause shall be liable to judgment. And whoever says to his brother, Raka, shall be liable to the Sanhedrin, but whoever says, you fool, shall be liable to the fire of Gehenna. He sees all that is haughty. He is sovereign over all the sons of pride. These 6 matters Yahuwah hates, Proverbs 6:16, and 7 are an abomination to him. A proud look, a lying tongue, and hands shedding innocent blood, a heart devising wicked schemes, feet quick to run to evil, a false witness breathing out lies, and one who causes strife among brothers. He sees all that is haughty. He is sovereign over all the sons of pride. This Leviathan, sovereign over all the sons of pride. Shalom. We're in Job for now. It's our last of Job. Move this table back just a little bit. That's a camera earthquake if you're not familiar with it. Well, let the camera focus. All right, let's pray. Father Yahweh, you know every word of this book because it's your word. This is your declaration. I love you, and I'm doing this for the people to know your truth and your word. And so, fill my mouth with your words and with your Holy Spirit and your Ruach HaKodesh, that people get the fullest information that you have to give them, and that people come out wiser, as Job did through all his trials. In Yeshua's name, amen. Have you guys been hydrating today? Have you called your family? Your mom, your wife, your kids, your daughter, your son, your father. Have you spoken to the Father today? Been on your knees and humbled yourself before him and his greatness? Job 42. And Job answered and said, you know that you are able to do all, and that no purpose is withheld from you. Who is this that hides counsel without knowledge? Therefore I declared, but I did not understand, matters too marvelous for me which I did not know. Listen, please, and let me speak. I ask you, then would you make it known to me? I have heard of you by hearing of the ear, but now my eye sees you. Therefore I despise myself and repent in dust and ashes. And it came to be, after Yahweh had spoken these words to Job, that Yahweh said to Eliphaz the Temanite, my wrath has burned against you and your two friends, for you have not spoken of me what is right, as did my servant Job. And now, take 7 bulls and 7 rams, and go to my servant Job, and offer up an ascending offering for yourselves, and let my servant Job pray for you, for I accept him, lest I punish you. Because you have not spoken of me what is right, as did my servant Job. So Eliphaz the Temanite and Bildad the Shuhite, Sophar the Naamathite, went and did as Yahweh commanded them, and Yahweh accepted the face of Job. And Yahweh turned the captivity of Job when he prayed for his friends, and Yahweh gave Job twice as much as he had before. And all his brothers and all his sisters and all those who had been his friends before came to him and ate food with him in his house. And they sympathized with him and comforted him for all the evil that Yahweh had brought upon him. And they each gave him a casita, and each one a ring of gold. And Yahweh blessed the latter days of Job more than his beginnings. For he had 14,000 sheep and 6,000 camels, 1,000 yoke of oxen, and 1,000 female donkeys. He had 7 sons and 3 daughters, and he called the name of the first Yemiyah, and the second Ketziyah, and the name of the third Karen Hapuk. And in all the land were found no women so beautiful as the daughters of Job. And their father gave them an inheritance among their brothers. And after this, Job lived 140 years, and saw his children and his grandchildren for 4 generations. And Job died old and satisfied with days. What a beautiful ending. And we're going to hit the most important point, and the point that I've been coming back to again and again throughout this whole book of Job, that has had such a profound timing in my life. See the alfalfa? That's my antenna. That's how I talk to God so well. Alright, so from 38 to 41, Yahweh is answering Job. It's a lot of questions. For Job. And he's basically saying, answer me. He says twice. He says, gird up your loins like a man, I ask you, and you answer me. And they're having a battle, which obviously it's really not a battle because El's going to win. But the battle is the authority. The battle is for authority. And it is Job's persistent dedication to Elohim and his submission of his righteousness that garners the blessing from Elohim. And this most important topic, I'm so glad that it ended this way, because it actually proves the entirety of my position. So let's get started. And Job answered Yahuwah and said, "You know that you are able to do all, and that no purpose is withheld from you." His admission of authority to Yahuwah. "Who is this that hides counsel without knowledge? Therefore I declared, but I did not understand, matters too marvelous for me which I did not know." I know that you can do all things. I have dealt with great things that I do not understand. Yeah, I like... Therefore I spoke without understanding. Who... You said, "Who is this who is obscuring my counsel without knowledge?" Yeah. So this is... (38:2). Who is this who darkens counsel by words without knowledge? Darkens counsel by words without knowledge. Basically, who's speaking out of turn, obscures divine plans with words of ignorance. So this should be in like quotes here, but this is why we're using 5 translations to get the point, because this is what Yahuwah says. So let's restart this. Job says, "You know that you are able to do all, and that no purpose is withheld from you." And then Job quotes Yahuwah, "Who is this that hides counsel without knowledge?" That's the question that he's about to answer. "Therefore I declared, but I did not understand." And that's why it said, "I have dealt with great things that I do not understand. I had heard you by too wonderful for me, which I cannot know." So he answers this. He says, "I declared, but I did not understand." Who is this that hides counsel without knowledge? It was me, but I didn't know what I was doing. Matters too marvelous for me, which I did not know. Listen, please, and let me speak. I ask you, then. Then would you make it known to me? So this has this got really, really weirdly worded. Okay, and the New World Translation's actually doing a pretty good job with these quotes here. Because again, in verse 4, you said, "Please listen and I will speak. I will question you and you inform me." Yeah, which quotes 38:3. So Job's rerunning the baseline of this conversation and the beginning of it. Who is that? He's finally at a place where he can answer Yah, because 41, Yah comes with 38, he goes through the beginnings of creation. And then 39, he goes through all the visible, physical, questionable working matters of the universe, right? Like how ostriches lay eggs and seem to abandon them, how an ox is pleased to serve Yahuwah by plowing the fields, how what was it? The deer know when to give birth. There's another quote in here, basically about an animal becoming prey. $38.39. Do you hunt the prey for the lion or satisfy the appetite of the young lions when they crouch in dens, sit in the cover of their shelter? Again, transitionary. Sometimes these chapters aren't cut perfect, but you can read 38 and then it just starts to go into animals at the end of the chapter. Do you lead the bear with its son? That is more constellation because it's a capital B bear, and so it's a proper noun there, not the animal bear, but beautifully transitioned in that I didn't even realize that when we did 38. So the beginnings of 38, because this is how perfect Elohim is. Like, really read Job, look at this, listen to the study that we've done together, and you will see without a shadow of a doubt, every single line by line of this book is comprehensively sewn together without a stitch out of place. 38 goes through the beginnings of time when the morning stars sang together. Have you ever commanded the morning and caused the dawn to its place? Have you come to the sources of the sea? Have you walked about in the recesses of the deep? From whose belly comes the ice, and who gave birth to the frost of the heavens? The waters harden like stone, and the surface of the deep is frozen. Do you bind the bands of Kima or loosen the cords of Cassel? Do you bring out the constellations at its season, or do you lead the bear with its sons? Now we've got to transition into the animals, and then we go into the animals at the end of 38, and then we come into the animals at 39, and then 40. 40 has the transition from human esteem and greater animals. 40 is a very short part of, do you have an arm like El? Deck yourself, please, with excellency and grandeur. So make you the best human that you can be. And I have this little behemoth here who eats grass like an ox. Strength is in his loins. He bends his tail like a cedar. His bones are like tubes of bronze. And then we see the escalation to the greatest monster that Elohim has made, Leviathan. And the greatest monster that Elohim has made is the dragon, the serpent, the Satan. Okay, that is where all this starts. Okay, so this is, man, going back to 2. Satan comes with the sons of Elohim. And what does Job end up doing when he is plagued by Satan? He says to Elohim, you know that you are able to do all, and that no purpose is withheld from you. Yahweh said to Job, "Who is this that hides counsel without knowledge?" And Job answered, "Therefore I declared, but I did not understand. Matters too marvelous for me, which I did not know. Listen, please, and let me speak. I ask you, then you would make it known to me." Please listen and I will speak. Yahweh says that to him. Let me explain to you all of this, as much as you deserve. Now gird up your loins and I ask you, and you answer me. I ask you, then would you make it known to me? I have heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eye sees you. Okay. Belief. Therefore I despise myself and repent in dust and ashes. Okay. Which was Job's original (2:10). And all this Job did not sin with his lips. And the three friends of Job heard of all this evil that came on him, and each one came from his own place, Eliphaz the Temanite, and Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite. And they met together to come to sympathize with him and to comfort him. And they lifted up their eyes from a distance and did not recognize him, and they lifted their voices and wept. Each one tore his robe and sprinkled dust on his head toward the heaven. Then they sat down with him on the ground 7 days and 7 nights, and no one spoke a word to him, and they saw that the pain was very great. Okay. So, I repent in dust and ashes. Sackcloth and ashes. We've seen in Ezra and Nehemiah. But this is basically a dirtying and an associated, he tears his garment, shaves his head, covers his head in dust. It's a humbling for Elohim in its most broad sense, but it really speaks to the insignificance of ourselves to Elohim, right? Like you cover yourself, put your face in the dirt, cover yourself in dust and ashes. And it came to be, after Yahuwah had spoken these words to Job, the Yahuwah said to Eliphaz the Temanite, "My wrath is burned against you and your two friends, for you have not spoken of me what is right, as did my servant Job." So, this is labeled as Job's restoration. Here's what I want. After this, the Lord had spoken these words to Job. The Lord said to Eliphaz the Temanite, "My anger burns against you and your two friends, for you have not spoken to me what is right, as my servant Job has." We went through this with Elihu. My wrath is kindled against thee. And it was so that after the Lord had spoken these words unto Job, the Lord said to Eliphaz the Temanite, my wrath is kindled against thee, and against thy two friends, for ye have not spoken of me the thing that is right, as my servant Job hath. I am angry with you and with your two friends, for you have not spoken rightly concerning me, as has my servant Job. Okay. So, because the point here is that Job is still not guilty of sin. He 29 starts out with, oh, that I were in months past as the days when Eloah protected me. There's never an accusation of the righteousness of Job. For what is the portion of Eloah from above, and the inheritance of the Almighty from on high? 31:2. Is it not the calamity of the perverse and the strangeness to the workers of wickedness? Does he not see my ways and number all my steps? Job knows that he's righteous and his actions are righteous. And he doesn't understand why all of this has befallen him. He knows that Allah will punish the wicked. If we go back to (24:1), times are not hidden from the Almighty, and why have not those who know him seen his days? Okay, and this is where we get to the Almighty, or to basically the dark not knowing the light. Okay, so my point here is that Elihu comes in 32 and starts really defending Eliphaz, Bildad, and Sophar. They're giving him ways. Because Job doesn't have to pray for Elihu. So why does the wrath burn against these three and not Elihu? One, because of their disposition. Elihu does a much better job of showing the righteousness of Elohim. 34:10. Therefore listen to me, you men of heart. Far be it from El to do wrong, and from the Almighty to commit unrighteousness. For he repays man's work to him, and makes man to find a reward according to his path. Now, did they do an alright job consoling Job? Yeah. They did not make the case that Job was out of line. And I think if you read through this, you can see the disposition of each man and their conviction of the righteousness of El. And Elihu takes the stage from 32 to 37. He has, until then, he is the longest portion in this book. Well, maybe Job does, just before that. Probably about the same. It's about the same. Which is what is necessary. Because you look at 25 with Bildad the Shuhite, and he gives this like 5-verse response. And I will admit my wrongs in the fact that I've done this as well. Somebody's basically questioning El, questioning the intentions, questioning the universe as his role in it and Yahweh's creation of it, and you get to a point where you're like, alright dude, sure, just believe it. And Elihu comes and he's like, no, not sure, Elohim's right, and you all need to know about it. And so these three men, their wrath burns against El. The wrath does not burn against Job. One, he humbles himself. But originally, he is the one who's plagued. Yahweh understands. Yahweh knows that which befell him. But he comes to Job and he says, should a reprover contend with the Almighty, let him who reproves Eloah answer it. He questions, is there any man who knows? I guess to put it simply. Is there any man who knows? No. Men don't know. Yahweh knows. Yahweh wrote this whole book from beginning to end. He knows where the creation happened and he knows what the end's going to be like. Yahweh gave this to us. For us to seek wisdom through it. And so he understands this learning lesson for Job. So, here's where this gets really, really messianic. Verse 8, and now, take 7 bulls and 7 rams, and go to my servant Job, and offer up an ascending offering for yourselves. And let my servant Job pray for you, for I accept him. Lest I punish you, because you have not spoken of me what is right, as did my servant Job. They're instructed to bring this offering to Job as if he's a priest. So Eliphaz the Temanite,
and Bildad the Shuhite, so far the Namathite, went and did as Yahweh commanded them, and Yahweh accepted the face of Job. And Yahweh turned the captivity of Job when he prayed for his friends, and Yahweh gave Job twice as much as he had before. Full stop. Yahweh turned the captivity of Job when he prayed for his friends. This is the loving your neighbor as yourself. We know that Elohim loved God, or that Job loved God, and that man was perfect and straight, and one who feared Elohim and turned aside from evil. I want to go to one of the verses that we've hit quite a few times because this is just hitting me. 28:28, and he said to man, see, the fear of Yahweh, that is wisdom, and to turn from evil is understanding. Turn from evil. And admits that he still didn't understand. He loves Yah. Now he loves his neighbor. It says, we go to 29. For when the ear heard, it blessed me, and when the eye saw, it gave witness of me. Because I rescued the poor who cried out, and the fatherless who had no helper. He says to his wife in 2:10, you speak as one of the foolish women speaks. Indeed, should we only accept good from Elohim and not accept evil? In all this, Job did not sin with his lips. So, Job knows that there is the propensity for evil from Elohim. He accepts that. He is able to not say, why is Elohim evil? What he says is, what good will come out of this? Young men once listened to his counsel, now in 30:11. Because he had loosed my bowstring and afflicted me, they have thrown off restraint in my presence. At my right hand a brood rises, they pushed away my feet, and they raise up against me their destructive ways. So my lyre becomes mourning, and my flute the sound of weeping. He's looking at this as a time. Luke 31:33. Luke 31:32. The sojourner did not have to spend the night in the street, for I have opened my doors to the way. If I have covered my transgressions like Adam by hiding my crookedness in my bosom,
Then let me fear the great crowd and dread the scorn of clans. Then I would be silent and go out of the door. Who would give me a hearing? See my signature. Let the Almighty answer me, and let my accuser write a bill. Would I not take it up on my shoulder, bind it on me for a crown? I would declare to him the number of my steps. I would approach him like a prince. We already read that he knows the number of his steps. If my land cries out against me, or its furrows weep together, if I have eaten its fruit without payment or caused its owners to die, let thistles grow instead of wheat and useless weed instead of barley. The words of Job are ended. Job at the end of 31 is saying, anything that I have done wrong, I will take entire credit for it. I will own my punishment. He accepts him. He accepts him. And he knows the truth of El. All right. Yeah. Job accepts his punishment, and Yahweh accepts Job. And Yahweh turned the captivity of Job when he prayed for his friends. When he prayed for his friends. Lay down your life for another. Your own love is respect and responsibility. And so your own life has to come second to the life of others. This is what will make El bless you. And I have seen this work definitively in my life. Do I know exactly how to execute it? I'm learning. But from the time of having money and not giving it to the people who needed it, the reason I started doing it in the first place, to the times that I would spend in comfort and satisfaction denying those around me. I want to pray for people more. Ask not that I be lifted up, but that others around me be lifted up. Even you hear me at the end of these prayers on my knees for the Bible reading. I talk about, let the Spirit flow through me and let the people get what they need so that I will be blessed in the doing of, No, different. Let the people get what they need. Let the people get what they need. And Yahweh gave Job twice as much as he had before. And all his brothers and all his sisters and all those who had been his friends before came to him and ate food with him in his house. And they sympathized with him and comforted him for all the evil that Yahweh had brought upon him. And they each gave him a casita, which is a denomination, a monetary value, some sort of money. And each one a ring of gold. So now
People are back to bringing Job rings of gold. All because Job had faith. Job humbled himself. (41:34). He sees all that is haughty. He is sovereign over all the sons of pride. That Leviathan. (42:10). And Yahweh turned the captivity of Job when he prayed for his friends. And Yahweh gave Job twice as much as he had before. Yahweh blessed the latter days of Job more than the beginning. He had 14,000 sheep and 6,000 camels and 1,000 yoke of oxen and 1,000 female donkeys. And his possessions were 7,000 sheep and 3,000 camels and 500 yoke of oxen and 500 female donkeys and a very large body of servants, so that this man was the greatest of all the people of the east. And he had 7 sons and 3 daughters. And he called the name of the first Yemimah, and the name of the second Kitziah, and the name of the third Karen Hapuk. And in all the land were found no women so beautiful as the daughters of Job. And their fathers gave them an inheritance among their brothers. Their father gave them an inheritance among their brothers. And after this, Job lived 140 years and saw his children and his grandchildren for 4 generations. John 17:11. And I am no more in the world, but these are in the world. And I come to you, set apart Father. Guard them in your name, which you have given me, so that they might be one as we are. When I was with them in the world, I was guarding them in your name, which you have given me, and I watched over them, and not one of them perished except the son of destruction, that the scripture might be filled. And now I come to you, and I speak these words in the world, so that they have my joy completed in them. I have given them your word, and the world hated them, because they are not of the world, as I am not of the world. I do not pray that you should take them out of the world, but that you should keep them from the wicked one. They are not of the world, as I am not of the world. Set them apart in your truth. Your word is truth. As you sent me into the world, I also sent them into the world. And for them I set myself apart, so that they too might be set apart in truth. And I do not pray for these alone, but also for those believing in me through their word, so that they all might be one, as you, Father, are in me and I in you, so that they too might be one in us, so that the world might believe that you have sent me. And the esteem which you gave me I have given them, so that they might be one as we are one, I in them and you in me, so that they might be perfected into one, so that the world knows that you have sent me and have loved them as you have loved me. Father, I desire that those whom you have given me might be with me where I am, so that they see my esteem which you have given me, because you loved me before the foundation of the world. O righteous Father, indeed the world did not know you, but I knew you, and these knew that you sent me, and I have made your name known to them, and shall make it known, so that the love with which you loved me might be in them, and I in them. Love the Lord your God with everything you've got, and all your heart, and all your strength. And the second is like unto it. Love your neighbor as yourself. Yeshua didn't pray for himself there. He glorified Elohim, and he prayed for his friends. And Job died, old and satisfied with days.
42:17. Book of Job. Praise Yahweh. Hail be to the King, Yashua HaMashiach. Verse 5. Slaughterings of righteousness and trust in Yahweh. We know all the slaughter offerings from Leviticus, and then we just read in Job about how the three men have to offer slaughterings and have Job pray for them. So, that makes more sense, because the men are offering the slaughtering and Job is praying for them. Now, in Messiah, the people are offering Yeshua. The people are crucifying Yeshua. They're killing him. So the people are sacrificing him for their sins, and he is praying for them. All right, we're getting somewhere. Shalom. I was just thinking about Job 42, and I'm going to add this in, because I know I made reference to the Messiah and how Job saves his friends, but I'm going to read to you 42, 7 to 10. And it came to be after Yahuwah had spoken these words to Job, that Yahuwah said to Eliphaz the Temanite, My wrath is burned against you and your two friends, for you have not spoken of me what is right, as did my servant Job. And now take 7 bulls and 7 rams, and go to my servant Job, and offer up an ascending offering for yourselves. And let my servant Job pray for you, for I accept him, lest I punish you, because you have not spoken of me what is right, as did my servant Job. So Eliphaz the Temanite and Bildad the Shuhite and Sophar the Naamathite went and did as Yahuwah commanded them, and Yahuwah accepted the face of Job. And Yahuwah turned the captivity of Job when he prayed for his friends, and Yahuwah gave Job twice as much as he had before. So, I just want to make it clear that there's 3 friends here. That is a number that we see very often, and I'm not going to get too far into it. But I am going to point you to Ezekiel 34, where the pastors have misled the sheepfold of Elohim, and how Yeshua is the good shepherd, John 10:14. And I'm also going to point you to Exodus 12, where the Passover is. Seven bulls and 7 rams. Take it from the sheep or the goats. Obviously, Yeshua is the lamb. So, bulls and rams, not lambs. This is an archetype for Messiah. Obviously, this is not the Messiah. But this whole passage is sacrifice from the people for the salvation of the friends, where Job is accepted. But to save his friends from being punished. He must be a mediator on behalf of his friends. The archetype of Messiah. I'm also going to point you to 1 Corinthians 15. He has put all under his feet, verse 27. But read the whole chapter, because he has to reign until he has put all enemies under his feet. The last enemy to be brought to naught is death. And the resurrection of Job is imminent. It's obvious.
I inscribed for a law. Yahuwah has said to me, "You are my son. Today I have brought you forth."
Okay. So we know that that is actually speaking of Messiah, because in Acts 13, we'll start at 32, and we bring you the good news, the promise made to the fathers, that Elohim has filled this for us, their children, having raised up Yeshua, as it has also been written in the second Tehillah, Psalm, "You are my son, today I have brought you forth," and that he raised him out of the dead, no more to return to corruption. He has said thus, "I shall give you the trustworthy kindness of David." For this reason, he also says in another Tehillah, "You shall not give your lovingly committed one to see corruption." Ask of me, I make the nations your inheritance and the end of the earth your possession. This is to the Messiah. You are my son, today I have brought you forth. Ask of me, and I make the nations your inheritance and the ends of the earth your possession. I made the point in Job 42 about the archetype of Messiah. And this is just another example of the double portion. Job 42:10, Yahuwah turned the captivity of Job when he prayed for his friends, and Yahuwah gave Job twice as much as he had before. You are my son, today I have brought you forth. We are going to go to a verse. In Genesis 27, Jacob steals the blessing from Esau. And so we're going to read Genesis 27:29 to 36. Let people serve you and nations bow down to you. Be master over your brothers, and let your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be those cursing you, and blessed be those blessing you. And it came to be, as soon as Yitzchak had finished blessing Jacob, and Jacob had hardly left the presence of Yitzchak his father, that Esau his brother came in from his hunting. And he too had made a tasty dish and brought it to his father, and said to his father, Let my father rise and eat of his son's wild game, so that your being might bless me. And his father Yitzchak said to him, Who are you? And he said, I am your son, your firstborn, Esau. Then Yitzchak trembled exceedingly, and said, Who was it then who hunted wild game and brought it to me? And I ate all of it before you came, and I have blessed him. Yes, he is blessed. When Esau heard the words of his father, he cried with an exceedingly great and bitter cry, and said to his father, Bless me too, O my father. And he said, Your brother came with deceit and took your blessing. And Esau said, Was his name then called Jacob? For he has caught me by the heel these 2 times. He took my birthright, and see, now he has taken my blessing. And he said, have you not reserved a blessing for me? Okay. So then Yitzchak answered and said to Esau, see, I have made him your master, and all your brothers, and all his brothers I have given to him as servants, and I have sustained him with grain and wine, and what then shall I do for you, my son? So then if we go to Deuteronomy 21:15, when a man has two wives, one loved and the other unloved, and they have borne him children, both the loved and the unloved, and the firstborn son is of her who is unloved, then it shall be on the day he makes his sons to inherit his possessions, he is not allowed to treat the son of the beloved wife as firstborn in the face of the son of the unloved, who is truly the firstborn. But he is to acknowledge the son of the unloved wife as the firstborn by giving him a double portion of all that he has, for he is the beginning of his strength. The right of the firstborn is his. Okay. And when a man has a wayward and rebellious son who is not listening to the voice of his father or his mother, and who, when they have disciplined him, does not listen to them, then his father and his mother shall take hold of him and bring him to the elders of his city, to the gate of his city, and say to the elders of his city, this son of ours is wayward and rebellious. He is not listening to our voice. He is a glutton and a drunkard. And all the men of his city shall stone him to death with stones. Thus you shall purge the evil from your midst, and let all Yisrael hear and fear. The firstborn gets a double portion. Okay? So, the nations, the ends of the earth, and Yahuwah gave Job twice as much as he had before. Alright, this is going to be a quick last in closing regarding the archetype of Messiah. So, we'll start at 42:10 because we just read it, and there's a little bit more description in there, but I also want to give you the scripture that came to me afterward. And Yahuwah turned the captivity of Job when he prayed for his friends, and Yahuwah gave Job twice as much as he had before. 42:10. And then we're going to go to, I have a pen because I actually wrote these down. I've been compiling this for a couple of days, editing this video. I just wanted to make sure that I had as many references as I could in the archetype of Messiah, in the calling, the yearning for Messiah. Matthew 28:18. And Yeshua came up and spoke to them, saying, all authority has been given to me in the heaven and on earth. Heaven and the earth. And so we're going to run back through Job. Starting in 9:33. There is no mediator between us to lay his hand upon us both. Job and Elohim. We need that mediator there. 14:12. Start at 11. Water disappears from the sea, and a river dries up and is parched. And man shall lie down and not rise, till the heavens are no more. They awake not, nor are aroused from their sleep. You have the risen one, Messiah. I'll provide you proof text for that, but we all know that. It's kind of the point of it. 18:4. Bildad the Shuhite. You who tear yourself to pieces in displeasure, would the earth be forsaken for your sake, or the rock be moved from its place? The rocks cry out. The rock from the tomb that's moved. Yeshua is the rock that the church is built on. He who builds his house on me shall be like the man who built his house upon the rock. And then we've got one nail in the coffin here. And I think we went to Leviticus. I want to say Leviticus 25 when we did this. Yeah, we did. For I know that my Redeemer lives, and as the last shall rise over the dust, and after my skin has been struck off, then in my flesh I shall see Eloah, whom I myself shall see on my side, and not a stranger. My kidneys have failed within me. My Redeemer lives, the risen one. And after my skin has been struck off, then in my flesh I shall see Eloah. The burning. 1 Corinthians 3. The spirit that remains. The set apart spirit. That Yeshua leaves with the apostles. Who I shall see on my side, and not a stranger. That Yeshua walks with us. And finally, 24:16. In the dark he has broken into houses. By day they shut themselves up. They have not known the light. John 8. Start at 10. And Yeshua, straightening up and seeing no one but the woman, said to her, Woman, where are those accusers of yours? Did no one condemn you? And she said, No one, Master. And Yeshua said to her, Neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more. Therefore Yeshua spoke to them again, saying, I am the light of the world. He who follows me shall by no means walk in darkness, but possess the light of life. The Pharisees therefore said to him, You bear witness about yourself. Your witness is not true. Yeshua answered and said to them, Even if I witness concerning myself, my witness is true, for I know where I came from and where I am going, but you do not know where I come from, where I come or where I go. You judge according to the flesh. I judge no one, but even if I do judge, my judgment is true, because I am not alone in it, but I and the Father who sent me. And in your Torah also it has been written that the witnesses of two men is true. I am one who witnesses concerning myself, and the Father who sent me witnesses concerning me. Praise Yahweh.